Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show about Sonic news, movie news, and Sonic movie news. My name is Ethan, and with me here to talk all about stuff, strikes, and other things
Labor.
is Devin. Yes, my foreign consultant overseas, my ambassador to Sonic Movie Show, Devin here.
I have no master except the wind that blows free.
Oh, Indiana Jones said that.
I guess Sonic said that to Sir Percival in Sonic and the Black Knight.
Okay, never played
I was
it.
trying to find a quote that was kind of like, you have nothing to lose but your chains kind of energy. And I literally looked up Sonic quotes about greed to see if they would pull up anything.
Okay.
And it's the best I got. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. Today is a very fun episode. We're going to be doing a couple big news, three big news. Depends on your perspective, but they're important to us, so they're big news for us. And then we're going to be talking about like some of the movies and games and stuff we've been consuming as nice little consumers in corporate America.
It's all tied together. This whole episode will be.
So yeah, why don't you begin, because this is a very difficult subject for me as someone that it feels like, I'm a CEO of my own world, and I really hate when people try to bring me down. So this is difficult for me. So I don't know if you want to.
As I know, you're part of the grind set, and this kind of goes against that. This is the biggest news as of today, as of recording this, July 13th, Thursday.
What the hell?
And I know we just did an episode about Sega, bunch of big Sega news, and one of the news was like, the Sonic team is trying to unionize, but we'll get to that later. But this is related because in the episode we did talk about how there's been like this big push for a lot of strikes and unionization in the United States. If anything, strikes and unionizations the biggest it's been in a very long time. And this is historical news that dropped today, which is that the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists,
That's
SAG-AFTRA,
what the AFTRA means. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. A lot of people are just saying SAG, announced that they'll be going on strike starting tomorrow. And you might not, if you don't know what that is, basically there's 160,000 members, but a lot of them are actors. So and I mean A-list actors are part of this. So for example, Oppenheimer, which is coming out next weekend, they're on their press tour, right? They're in the United Kingdom, I think. All the actors, as soon as it was announced that they were going to go on strike, they left, and they're flying home, and they're going to be on the picket line, which is fucking great. But the reason it's such a big news is because they're joining the Writers Guilds of America, WGA, who's been on strike since May 1st. And this is reminiscent. The WGA strike is reminiscent of the 2008 strike during the recession that we had, and they were on strike from, I think, 72 days. It was a really long time. A lot of shows got canceled because of it and whatnot. And it would eventually extend into a lot of the other worker movements during that time period. But the reason I want to bring this up specifically, one, that's just awesome that the A-list actors and actors and of every ranking, I guess, I don't like ranking them, but are joining in the strike with the WGA. And the last time that they were all together was in 1960, last time they striked.
Wow.
And Ethan, I'm going to give you a little trivia question.
Uh-oh.
There's a man that a lot of people love who actually, in 1960, led the WGA and SAG strike together. Could you guess who that man is?
When you say people love, do you mean then or now? Can I ask that first?
Then.
Harvey
we don't
Weinstein.
like him. No. Think a higher level than that. Much higher level. Like perhaps leader of the free world level.
Oh, a president. Interesting.
Could you guess what president?
Wow. Bill Clinton went back in time.
No,
which president? Which president?
Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Yeah, and actually, when I watched one of the debates on my Twitch channel a couple weeks ago, he mentioned
Persona Fun.
Thank you. He mentioned I'm a union man. I was in 1960, and I forgot about it until I was reading today, and I'm like, like, yeah, that makes sense. He was part of he was the WGA's, or not WGA's. He was the SAG president at the time in 1960. So he led that strike. So since Ronald Reagan led
you were joking when you said we liked him. Okay.
Yeah. Some people still like him, I guess. But yeah, the basically the national board of that union voted unanimously to launch the guild's first strike. This was after a 12-day extension of contract negotiations with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers. Fran Drescher is the president, and I would highly recommend watching their speech that they did, their press conference they did. She really brought the energy and gave me goosebumps.
I watched a good chunk of it. Yeah.
I'm going to read one quote that she said, which kind of just sums up why they're doing this. She said, the entire business model has been changed by streaming, digital, and AI. This is a moment of history that is a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are going to be in trouble. We're all going to be in the jeopardy of being replaced by machines and big business. Who cares more about Wall Street than you and your family? And I just thought that quote is phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, we've seen this coming. We've talked about AI being an issue in art in general. And with the economy the way it is and everything else, this was coming to a boiling point, and I'm just happy to see that's happening, because even a couple of weeks ago, it didn't sound like they thought maybe a deal was going to be reached and whatnot. But yeah, I guess the on the other end of the table there, they were trying to push to have even all the way down to background actors, that they would basically sign their rights away for you being used in AI. So they would come in for one day, be filmed, and then the AI would put them in later. Is basically their way of these companies trying to cut corners, and also just so fucked up. That's for life. They own basically your face and everything.
Yeah, which is
and the and then we've seen with the Superman movie, or the Flash, the Superman movie. Whatever. How they brought back, what's his name? I forgot the actor's name, but the original Superman.
Reed,
how they brought him back basically from the dead without basically getting approval from the family, because of somewhere in the contract at some point he probably signed that his likeness is.
And how is he supposed to know that
right
that was ever going to be a part of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I want to actually go back in this back to 1960. What they were fighting for is eerily similar, because in 1960, because a lot of what they're talking about too is not just AI, they're talking about residuals from streaming services, where I saw someone who was on one of the Disney Plus shows that they said they got $360 total.
Yep, She-Hulk. It was the episode where Daredevil comes in, which is probably the highlight of that whole show for a lot of people, and they got $396.
Yeah, or what? Yeah, which is nothing. It's ridiculous. So that's part of the reason too. It's not just AI. It's also getting a fair cut from all these big businesses, these streaming platforms that are making bank on all these shows, and no one's getting compensated fairly for it. Clearly, but yeah, back in 1960, very similar. They were fighting for rights of movies being played on television. Afterwards. So it's just it's interesting with the technological advancements we've had, that it's similar. It's the same conceptually, the same problem, where it's just these companies get away with we can just do direct to video and pay our people less, but then we get all the money for it. And with
streaming, we don't need to show what the numbers are, so it's hard to argue what your residual should be.
Right.
Right. You're just going to get what we give you.
And on top of that bonus thing, the same thing happened today. Right before the announcement came, CEO of Disney, everyone's favorite, Bob Iger, whose net worth is your average Iron Man box office, so $690 million in 2019, so it's probably more than that now. In a Variety interview, he just complained about labor disputes and how everyone's so cheap and it's going to hurt the arts and all this stuff. And then he also complained about Marvel being oversaturated. I'm like, bro, you're the boss. You're complaining about your own thing.
It's that Subway meme. You're the one that made the sandwich.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he was talking about how like Marvel's like oversaturating itself, and like that's why we're gonna start losing money on it, and that's why things like The Flash are losing money. But yeah, I would just highly recommend watching the full speech, and I'll say this: you're gonna see until this thing is over, and people are saying this could last potentially the whole rest of the year. That's how people are so dug in on this, and rightfully so. Don't be surprised if you see media try to spin everything they can against both these unions, the people striking. Don't be surprised if you see more CEOs call it out and try to use us, the consumers, against them. And I will say, you have to see through the bullshit. They're gonna say shit like, "Hey, sorry, Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse 3 isn't gonna come out now, and it's because of the writers." And they're gonna say that, and your response should be,
"There's gonna be people that are gonna believe it." Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to support this strike, and obviously we should listen to what they say. They haven't said anything about boycotting streaming services. I could see that happening in the future, so I guess be ready. But so far, the best way I think to support them, and from what people are saying, is like, hey, just don't listen to the bullshit they're gonna say. I mean, you have all the big name, Entertainment Weekly, the article that we're using to reference most of the story, and Variety and all that, who we've referenced before. I've already seen it. They've already spun things being like, yeah, well, they're being, A-list actors already make so much money, blah, blah, blah. They're going to do everything in the power to make us, the consumers, go against them. The best way I think we're going to help them out is by just, listening to what they're saying and call it out. Call it out on them too. Be like, nah, Bob Iger, you have $690 million in the bank right now. So shut the fuck up and just pay people a living wage that is pennies to you. And I always say this: come out of your own paycheck. Fuck you.
Right. If his, obviously it's lip service stuff he's trying to manipulate, through the media. That's why he was on through Variety. You know what I mean? It wasn't even like a public statement. It was through.
No, it was through Variety.
You know what I mean? Through media. But let's just pretend that he actually does think it's a threat to the business itself. Like, what they want would prevent the business as it currently exists from operating. That means that your business operation's bad. You know what I mean? If you require exploitation in order to actually
the whole
make
point
this
of strikes,
stuff, you know what I mean? Then you need to change it. Like, sorry, maybe the streaming model of making it dirt cheap at first to get into your service, and then raising the price slowly over time, and then adding in ads, and then trying to be like, oh my god, everything needs really high budgets. Everything needs we need 1 million. The Netflix model of make 1 million fucking things all at once and just see if any of them are even remotely a hit. Cancel the ones that don't. You know what I mean? Like, that model doesn't work. So you need to change that. Then people are willing to pay for things that they like to see. This whole streaming, everything, on the buffet is up for grabs for $13.99 a month idea is appealing to a lot of people, but they would also pay that amount of money just to watch a season of Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? People will pay for things that they actually want. And
Stranger Things, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to this too, is that you're also going to see a lot of, just probably from even politicians too, you're going to see that this is going to hurt the economy potentially, or this is going to hurt the whole infrastructure, like you said, of Hollywood. And that's the point. It's supposed to be disruptive. It's not going to be fun and games. But Absolutely. If you're worried about your show being canceled, I get it, but there's people who can't even fucking afford rent right now. So in Los Angeles. So it's think about those people before your fucking favorite Marvel thing comes out. And to be honest, all those big Marvel things are going to probably come back. They'll just be delayed.
Oh, I mean,
will there be...
If the idea was worth selling in the first place,
but
they'll do it, even if it didn't work out this time. Striking is a form of protest, and protests are meant to be disruptive. Protests also don't have to be peaceful and polite either. You know what I mean?
And they're doing
strike in front of Bob
Iger's
Iger's house if you wanted to. That's public information where that man lives. Do it right there. You know what I mean? Like really get in the weeds on it. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of really shitty things happening in the world that there's a lot of Hail Mary hopes on, oh, this will turn things around. I actually do think this will turn around because what are they going to do? You know what I mean? Just
having the writers
find a
and the
whole
actors
bunch
together,
of people to all of a sudden be, writers, actors, and all that stuff. Like, I saw a tweet.
And we're also
I saw a tweet about Blizzard posted job postings, and there was a lot of senior positions, no junior positions. And people were like, if you want senior positions, you should hire juniors and then train them there. But you only want the top people for this one project, and then they can go away when you're done with that project. Same thing happens in movies and TV. We want super high level trained individuals for this role, but we've gotten rid of the path on getting there. So eventually you're just not, like, that's the thing with writers. These writers are not allowed on sets because it's cheaper that way. Their input basically is in writers' rooms that are like a day, and that's kind of it. There's no process there. I don't remember who it was, but I was reading this thing or maybe watching, and then I had the voices in my head if I was reading it, where this woman was like, I got to my position by being, the grind set type of person, whatever, like pushing and being like, hey, can I come in too? Hey, can I do this? Because I was able to. And like, I have people that want to be my position and they can't get my luck because the opportunity isn't even available for that path to even happen. They want people to come in, tell them, yeah, Spider-Man should punch Dr. Octopus in the face right here. That's a really good point. And then they say, here's $7. Don't ever show up again. And you know what I mean? And then they have, they probably don't even, credit them correctly if you're HBO Max. You know what I mean? So.
Right. Yeah, no, and also on top of this, non-movie related, so technically outside our scope, but it is related. UPS is rumored to be potentially going on strike, which is, if they go on strike on top of this, dude, the dominoes are starting to go. I don't know.
I had a coworker whose son worked at UPS, and they laid him off over something, and the UPS union got him his job back or got him a shit ton of severance because it was nice. Like bullshit.
Hell yeah, you love to see it.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say my wet dream. All right,
one of your many. Often they involve me.
Right. No, my dream is, on all honesty, be like, if this somehow can turn into like a general strike, because that'd just be fucking sick. Like let's all aim for December, okay? let's all leave our jobs in December. No, I mean, yeah, this is nice. Good, and this is just a further, like I said, part of one of the dominoes of this big labor movement that's happening in this country. And if you notice, like I said, the mass media will talk about it only in a negative way. They don't talk about how this is a big trend, really. And when they do talk about everything's an isolated
with a negative spin. Yeah.
And all this stuff happening in other countries, just coincidence. Just a coincidence.
Yep.
So, but yeah, connect the dots, folks. This is good shit happening. I know the world kind of sucks a lot. With all every day it feels like there's something shitty out there, especially if you're online. But this is good news. I think this is huge.
This is huge. This is very good news. Yeah. Why don't we talk about some bad news?
Yeah, let's stem to the next part here. Yeah,
Microsoft beat the FTC in the court case over whether or not Microsoft should buy Activision Blizzard. The judge ruled that yes, they can, because the FTC seemed too sympathetic to Sony, too reliant on Jim Ryan's testimonial and this magic 20% number. Where did this come from? I will say this, having read some threads from Stephen Toledo. I don't know what publication he's at now. He's one of those people that like moves around a lot. I don't know where exactly he is right now, but shouts to him. I've been reading his threads where he live tweets each hearing over the 5+ days that this was going on. And, so my knowledge is filtered through that guy. But I don't think the FTC did a good job in their case. However, we've been on the stance before that this is a very bad thing to happen.
I feel like we're one of the few people in like the gaming sphere who are against it too. I feel like a lot of people.
I think it is popular to be against it, but not a lot of people are doing it from the no one should be able to buy anyone unless it's to save them from going out of business completely type of stance. Like, yes, if Sony should not have bought Bungie. If Bungie was going to go out of business, resulting in the entire studio being gone if we're closed, yes, swoop in and save them. Cool. But this was a way to stock up on ammunition.
I call it an arms race. It's an arms race. Like, I know it's not weapons of mass destructions, but it's just like Microsoft and Sony. I don't care who started it and when it started, but it's been the last 5 years really where it's really escalated, where it's like, okay, well, now all of a sudden Sony owns this studio. Okay, all of a sudden Microsoft owns this studio. And we're talking about big names here. Like, I mean, Activision Blizzard is fucking huge.
They are as big as Sony and Microsoft in terms of the video game.
We talked about
attention.
in our Sega State of Sega episode last week, where like at one point Microsoft's trying to buy Sega, like crazy.
Yeah, and Bungie, believe it or not.
And
which is funny because they own Bungie. I think. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe Bungie just had a really, really buddy-buddy relationship. But I thought they owned, Microsoft owned Bungie at one point. But yeah, FTC lost. Judge ruled that, yes, you do get to buy it. Now, it is still blocked in the UK over the cloud streaming stuff.
But EU regulators approved it. But I guess that's not... UK's
it's one of those things
anymore,
where, like,
but...
I guess they can just decide, no, fuck you, we're going to do it now? I don't really understand that part. The FTC has appealed its loss and said, hey, we think you were wrong. And that's how it works, because I see... I don't know that much about the law. So again, my stuff is filtered through other people that do. This is how it works, because I've seen a lot of legitimately Xbox fanboys being super, yeah, that's awesome, being like, what, they didn't provide any more evidence? And it's like, well, you don't in this stage. You can't do that. Like, that's not how that works. You kind of just say, hey, we think that this was done unfairly because of this, and this reason. Nothing more really to say other than, like, the impact on the industry is hard to really discern. Like, it is down on promises. Like, the judge believed Microsoft's promises to keep Call of Duty. I don't know why I put that in quotes. It's a real thing. Put Call of Duty on all platforms still, even Nintendo, for 10 years. They have
10 years, like, which is cool for 10 years, right? But
then like, what happens? Okay. I get it. But, you know, it's one of those things where, like, you can't say forever because then you can come into problems. I can understand that. But yes, after 10 years, then it is exclusive. So much of this is about trusting Microsoft when, like, if a policy, a rule, a law has the ability to do harm, it should be judged on that ability. It should not be judged on the benefits that come out of it. It should be judged on the ability to do harm, because things can always be changed. There's a lot of harm that can be done to the industry here, not just directly in Sony or Nintendo or any platform holders, pocketbooks, but on actual consumers. And, I get it. We're all like capitalism, this and that, like, but the consumer aspect of it is something that, yes, like, as individual people, this does hurt our ability to acquire this stuff, to purchase this stuff at prices that aren't exorbitant, aren't being held back, whatever, right? So much of this was based off promises that Microsoft could just say, never mind, and they could come up with some bullshit reason to, like, make themselves look good, but they can be like, well, we're going to put it on PlayStation and Xbox, but, like, we have this new directional platform for where Call of Duty is going to go, and, like, that's only on Xbox. But, like, if you just want to buy the game, we're selling them for, like, $120 now. So, like, you can either buy $100 on PlayStation or Xbox. But, like, if you subscribe to our Game Pass, which gives you the Call of Duty platform, this is something I'm making up, by the way.
Whatever.
It's $15 a month, and, like, but that's only on Xbox. So they can do that shit where, like, they could raise the price of Call of Duty, but keep it for free or included with Game Pass, like that type of stuff. It does boil down to Call of Duty because that is just the biggest juggernaut in gaming ever. We can say, oh, GTA 5 is the best-selling game of all time. It pales in comparison to the franchise of Call of Duty. Mario, that's great, that's fantastic. Best-selling series in Japan. I'm sure it's a tenth of what Call of Duty's done in total, and it's been around for half as long.
Because you're not
what I mean?
including like microtransactions and all that people buy.
Yeah, the
every single day.
season passes upon season passes, and
Right.
yeah, I made a joke like during the Steam Summer Sale, like you can get all the Call of Duty games for for half off. Without the half off, it's like thousands of dollars to get them all, and people will because hey, it's all of those games. As far as like the competition on the hardware front, I actually don't think it's that impactful on the other people. As far as the services go, I don't think it's that impactful on the other people. It just comes down to the big core games and the inability to get them on platforms people are already on, which is how that can throw the market. Because yes, that 20% was the number of PlayStation gamers who will switch to Xbox, theoretically, over this because they want to go where Call of Duty is. If 20% of PlayStation's audience will leave to become Xbox's audience over the Call of Duty swap. Now, I saw a tweet, I don't remember what the person's name was, and I almost replied to it, who asked, like, console warrior fanboy stuff aside, why are there people that are happy over this? Like gamers specifically, why are there people that are happy over this? I started to respond, but like, I often will try to start to respond to someone on Twitter and then just decide, no, like, who gives a shit about my voice? Like, is this really worth it? Because I'm going to be taken out of context and,
Yeah, usually it's me, like, I write out something, and it's usually to, like, someone, like, yelling about voting third party or something. I write a whole thing, and I'm like, this won't add it. This won't be helpful.
Right. You're not. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did
I'll
with
get
this.
it out. I'll get
Even
it
though
out.
This guy was
no one
like,
will see it, and I'll just move on with my day.
This guy was saying, well, I'm going to do it here. I think the reason why, I will say this deep down, a lot more people have that tribalism in them than they want to admit. I have a little bit of it too. Like, yeah, I like when PlayStation does good, and it does feel kind of nice when like the opposition isn't. It's weird. I have that a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I'm completely neutral or biased. I don't own an Xbox. At the same time,
it's the influences of businesses and
right.
to make us feel like we're part of something great. Literally, isn't that like Sony's thing or whatever? Or one of them is like
greatness awaits. Be greater was Spider-Man's tagline for the 2018 game.
I don't know, but I feel like that's been like the kind of idea behind gaming is for everyone.
I think so. There's a legacy for me on PlayStation, and so some of that, like, I want that to stay strong and blah blah blah, whatever. So I don't want to say everyone, a lot more people have it than they'd like to admit, and it's in degrees. Not people are like they look fuck you Xbox blah blah blah. Like it doesn't. I'm not like that. I'm against obviously all of the acquisitions in general, and companies should not be able to buy each other up like this, etc. But what I think for people that aren't using the tribalism stuff or like the console warriors things, but they're Xbox gamers and are happy about this, the reason why is something very simple. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I've been playing Final Fantasy 16. That's exclusive to PlayStation 5 because Sony paid for the exclusivity. I guess that's not confirmed, but like that's how that works. That Square didn't just decide to do that. There was money involved. The reason why I'm kind of happy that Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive to PlayStation 5, at least its development leading up to it, is because I think that the game is better than what it probably could have been if it was multi-platform at launch. And I think for a lot of people, they think, man, I really love Call of Duty. If they're only making it for the Xbox and PC, but they're only focusing on this, I as an Xbox gamer will get an even better experience than I was already going to get. And I think that's where a lot of people earnestly are coming from, where it's that guiltiness of like, well, I mean, Final Fantasy 16 is a really fun game, and I'm kind of glad that it came out this way, and it's probably because they only had one platform to develop it on. They focused all on that, and hey, guess what? Sony helped them on that game. They threw resources at it. They threw knowledge and know-how. Activision Studios, or Call of Duty Studios at this point, really, they're gonna get all of the same things, presumably. So in their eyes, like, the Activision games are gonna get even better for them. And it sucks that, their friend or sibling or relative that doesn't own an Xbox isn't going to be able to get, you know what I mean, that game on their PlayStation.
Behind a paywall. But it's basically behind a new paywall. I have to pay $500 for the other console now to play with my friend.
Absolutely. And
I already spent $500 on the other one.
Yeah, yeah. And like I get it. There's a lot of people that own both machines. Big ups to you. Like I could. I love video games. Like I would see that cost as being something that's like I don't want to, but I haven't really felt the need to. You know what I mean? And I will say this, like thinking about Final Fantasy, if it was exclusive to Xbox, I would be upset and pissed because I want my Final Fantasy trophies on PlayStation. It's a weird thing where like, no, it's leaving me because I have a lot of my time and memories and identity in terms of the gaming space tied to this platform. If it leaves and I have to go somewhere else, it's just not going to feel the same. And so like that's one aspect that could happen to the people that could just buy an Xbox or maybe already own an Xbox, but like to them it's a legacy thing. I remember when, and this is hypocritical on Sony fans, when Rise of the Tomb Raider, the 2015 game, launched exclusively on Xbox and it was exclusive to them, which is the same shit as Final Fantasy 16. Presumably after a year it's gonna start development on another platform. PlayStation gamers were pissed because guess what? That's a PlayStation 1 game. It's a franchise that's PlayStation identity. You can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Like, if Sony decided that, hey, Bungie's future games are only on PlayStation, a ton of Xbox gamers would probably rightfully feel the same way of like, but man, Bungie's part of the Xbox identity. You can't just buy your way into taking that away from us. That sucked then. It sucks now. You know what I mean? For Final Fantasy fans that got in on 360 with when they started pop-up over there with 13 and then 15. And then, backporting on HD collections to be like, nah, the new one, sorry, you don't get that one. Be like, damn it. So the same thing happens with this here. So I think that some people can earnestly have a guilty, yes, I'm glad this came out this way with this resolution because the games are going to get better for them, presumably. And I actually do believe if you have less platforms to develop for, you can either tailor the game towards the one platform a little bit better, or you just have more time to make the game and less time spent on, making sure it works elsewhere. But at the same time, as a Sonic movie show stands, we are 100% against this acquisition specifically, as well as the idea of any vertical industrial acquisition stuff, the fact that we live in a Reagan era still. 100%. America lives in its Reagan era, even still.
Shout out to our boy Reagan again.
it's the way the government handles business. We had two Roosevelts trust bust the shit out of corporations in America, and all it took was a union man himself to somehow turn it all against us. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, we've mentioned this before, but like, hey, HBO Max and all that stuff really sucks because a phone company decided they wanted to own a movie company, and then they decided that they didn't want to, so they sold it off to a television company, and that television company values its own stuff more than The Sopranos. It values HGTV on the same level as Game of Thrones. And so that made that experience worse for everyone just because that was allowed to be merged in the first place. This will have huge ramifications on the industry. It won't start off right away, but it will start off...
It might be 10 years from now.
10 years happens really quickly, by the way. 10 years goes by quickly when it comes to this type of stuff.
No, I just want to say, I feel like for me, what I most don't like about this too is one, it just really is starting to feel like more and more every month it feels like with every new acquisition is that it's just becoming Microsoft versus Sony, and then like Nintendo is this weird like last like legacy kind of video game company where like we have our exclusives but we've always been doing that.
Yeah,
we have our own market, right? But just like those three, right? I feel like that's just, already it's been like this for a while, but I just feel like it's both of them are just Sony and Microsoft especially are in an arms race to just have as much shit on their platforms as possible. They're both going to try to do the streaming thing. I mean, Xbox with Game Pass is already doing it. You know, you have PlayStation Plus. But yeah, you're just talking about like using Netflix and stuff. Netflix bought I don't remember what it was, but they bought like Friends or whatever for how many millions of dollars, right? And you can only watch it on there. And I feel like that's what it's going to come down to is like,
I think it was $1 billion for that and Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, that if you have an indie studio, let's say, you already see this now, where like they'll have one breakout game and all of a sudden they're exclusive to Xbox for a couple years, and all of a sudden, nope, actually they're bought by Sony now completely, and they're working on a sequel to your favorite game. My fear is, in the long run, is you're just going to have two conglomerates, maybe three with Nintendo, and it's going to be even harder and harder for you to break through as an indie developer onto the market because video games are more and more expensive to make. Resources are connected to these companies, so like for you to get them, it's gonna be harder to access it. And my fear is like I think about this, like as much as we shit on Steam and whatnot of like how many garbage games on there, I'd rather have that than feel like a marketplace of Call of Duty, NBA 2K, and like 5 things that are just gonna be taking up the entire like ad space. You're gonna have to go dig for games, and there might be less incentive for people who want to make video games on an indie level to want to make them because they're like, why should I waste my time with how expensive it is and how much effort it's going to take to make a game if only 2 people are going to fucking see it and one of them only plays it. You know what I mean? Because I guess I better get bought up by a Sony. Hopefully that's the end. That's why I feel like the end goal is for indie developers now. It just feels like, what's the end goal? Keep making these games on the business side, not a creative side. On
it's that startup model of let's just try to make it a little bit, and then someone will buy us out, and we get a huge chunk of money, and we could leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it feels like already, and I'm just worried that like this deal just is the last like nail in the coffin of like. I just feel like it's just gonna be Xbox, Sony, or PlayStation, whatever. At least for me, and maybe I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Microsoft is this honest company and they really care about the gamers and whatever. I don't know. It really bothers me seeing just like, at least on my end of gaming people I follow, like people cheering this on and being like, "Oh, this is great news for the consumers." I'm like, I don't see that.
How?
Look at like every other industry before video games in terms of arts, movies and whatnot too. We talk like that's the reason we're having strikes is because you have 4 companies that own all the licenses and everything, all the production studios. Universal, you know, then Warner Brothers was bought by or Warner Brothers bought a whole bunch of studios too. And everyone's connected to 1 or 2 dogs. You have Universal, you have Disney. You know what I mean? Like, is that what? And we complain about, wow, Marvel movies are kind of stinking it up now. Because that's what they do. And that's what my fear is. We already get Call of Duty every year at one point, and people complained about that. I feel like once it gets to that point, it's just what it's going to be. It's just going to be like, oh, Ethan, what video game have you been playing lately? Call of Duty 7, Modern Warfare 8, or whatever. You know what I mean? Just like, I just feel like the access is going to be just different. And not, I don't think in a positive way, as a consumer person. But
7 was Black Ops.
I just made up a title. It doesn't fucking matter.
I had to do the math in my head.
But yeah, no, I'm just worried about like more so for indie developers and people who like video games. I think 10 years ago really felt like for like if you're into like creative shit and you're into video games, like hell yeah, I want to get into that industry. And like yeah, it'll be a grind and maybe there's some shitty elements of it, but it felt a little bit less untouched by like corporate greed just 10 years ago. I'm not saying it wasn't perfect, but you know what I mean?
Because a lot of that was in the mobile space.
Yeah. And now it just feels like, okay, we're here. And it's like, I don't know. It just makes it, I feel like the video game industry is like, it's still new, quote unquote. And I feel like it's quickly succumbing to just the forces of capitalism.
It makes more money than film, and it's easier to charge a lot, but it also costs a lot more. I had the thought, talking about like the, I don't hate the other platforms, but I'm a little secretly guilty happy that that like, oh, an exclusive is coming my way. As a mutual friend of ours, David, texted me because he's a big AMD fan now, because he built a new computer over NVIDIA. That Starfield's PC version is sponsored by AMD, and so like it will run better on AMD stuff. And he's like, hell yeah, go Team Red, and like this and that, because yeah, like it is it, but like I don't know.
I mean, it's like iPhone versus Android, same shit. Like we used to even have like different mobile companies, and that quickly turned into it's either Android or Apple now, really at this point. And most people have iPhones. You know, it's just gonna be that's just gonna be it with video games. I feel like, and we're gonna look back at this, and I don't want it to be a "I told you so" thing either. I don't know. It's depressing for me.
I hate being right when it comes to shit. I know we have a tweet about this, but I think we probably talked at length enough about all this stuff here. So let's talk about our other big final news here. We talked about this last week.
It was before it was announced that they like officially won, but like so the Sega Union, AEGIS-CWA, voted to unionize 91 to 26. This is the first 200 plus member union that is the largest multi-department union of organized workers in the gaming industry. So it isn't just game developers, it's cross different departments, which I think is cool.
Well, it also means too, because like I think by multi-department they don't necessarily mean that. They mean like the animators and the programmers and like the like it's not just like all of the testers at Raven, unionized or voted to unionize. Like this would be like if all of Raven Software did it. I think that's what they mean. But yes,
which I think is good, because oftentimes I feel like unions too are often thought of like, oh, it has to be people at your like either your level or your position, and it's like, no, you can theoretically, if you have enough people to, here's the other thing is voted to unionize is because they went through the NLRB, which most people do, but theoretically you can form a union at any point. It just might be quote unquote illegal, and that's where you get wildcat strikes and stuff. But technically you can have two people be in a union, you know what I mean? And if granted, you probably don't have as much power against, what you're trying to fight against, because there's only two of you, but you know what I mean? I think it's important to remember that, like, hey, yeah, you actually can unionize with the janitor or whatever, or vice versa. I know at some places there's already unions for like facilities. Like I work in higher education. A lot of facility management is unionized, and then they aren't connected to like anyone else. And I kind of wish sometimes that like, hey, what if the professors unionize with the facility management? Like okay, we can shut down not just the classes, we can shut down the toiletries, like we can work together.
At the last company I worked at, the warehouse, all the warehouse workers were unionized, but not anyone else in the company, which, good for them, but wish it extended further.
And then companies that like will always fight tooth and nail, but like, they'll be like, okay, well, this is warehouses, let's say the office side is, good, whatever, But no, I just want to give an update on that because it's related directly to Sega and Sonic the Hedgehog, our Lord and Savior.
Sonic the Hedgehog?
They voted to unionize, and they'll be going to the bargaining table. So we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, make sure to follow them on Twitter.
It takes AEGIS. It's on the screen there, but it's way up top, so you might not see it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Hey, guess what? We've been, talking a lot about news, and it's a very serious time in America and the world, and, sometimes you just need to relax, ease your mind, your eyes, your thumbs, play a video game, watch a movie, watch a TV show, listen to some music, and the like. What have you been watching recently?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll go with my first one here, which is actually related to everything we've been talking about. I'm a Virgo, which was directed and created by my guy, Boots Riley. He's one of my favorite rappers, but also one of my favorite radical people. He's a self-proclaimed communist. He he's not afraid to show that in his music that he made back in the 90s and 2000s. He's also made the movie Sorry to Bother You. So if you've seen that,
okay. Yeah.
He's made this. And this is on Amazon Prime, which is what makes it even funnier to me. That, I mean, it's corporations love to make anti-corporate stuff, but this show is about it's only like, I think, 8 episodes, and they're 30 minutes each. It's like 3 hours and 15 minutes in total. So you could binge this in an evening easily, and I would highly recommend doing so. But yeah, basically it's about a 13-foot black man who just he lives in his house. He's kind of like secluded from society. You learn more about where he comes from and whatnot, but it's very fantastical. He loves doing very like over the top with his stuff. Even in his music was kind of like that, like trying to be like, hey, pay attention to this because it's important, but I'm going to make it as obvious as possible. And I've always liked that about him. So we're talking about like media literacy and stuff. I don't know, either before this episode, before we start recording, and like, this is a show I feel like you will get the point. If you don't get the point from this, I don't know how to help you. Like, there's literally a part in it where, so basically it's low-key a superhero show, but not in a way that is like The Boys or Marvel, obviously, or anything like that. There's just people in this world that happen to have some abilities, but no one really questions it too much. People are just like, that's cool, and then they just like move on with their day, which is cool. But one of them, for example, is kind of loose spoilers, but I don't think it ruins it. There's one character who has the ability to grab everyone's attention and just talk to you and explain something to you to where you will understand it. And she talks about how, because this character, she like runs like a local like rent strike, tenants union kind of thing. Okay. But she at one point talks to a group of protesters protesting over some police brutality, if I remember correctly, and she just explains how like police brutality and police are tied to capitalism in like an informative, like there's a bunch of animations that happen on screen because she has this power to like deliver the message to you, what she's trying to say. I just thought that's cool. But all the actors are great in it. It's funny. I wouldn't call it dark comedy. It's just kind of like goofy funny. Like I said, it's very fantastical, so there's like the elements to it. Music's very good in it. The set piece is good. Our boy Frodo's in it, which is funny because they use a lot of the same techniques they used in Lord of the Rings of using forced perspective to make him look 13 feet tall. And they have a bunch of set pieces that he has like his own house that he's in. So like that's normal size to the actor, but then everyone else is small, and it's really funny. I don't know. There's so many good things I'll say about this show, but I don't want to spoil it too much. But yeah, if you're looking for a radical show that's also not too like doom and gloom, this is a good show because it's about like community power, but also in a good way where like it doesn't feel like it has more of a happy ending, and there isn't. It's like Sorry to Bother You, where like there's motifs of radicalness in it, but it's not like its main purpose either. It's a show about like enjoying life too at the same time. Like, yeah, does the world kind of suck sometimes? I hate enjoying
life, so I probably you know, that's not something I have in common.
But no, I don't know. It's very refreshing to watch something like this compared to just like a lot of, I don't know, just like a lot of stuff out there that is based off something or fits in a certain genre. I don't know where I would put this. Is my best way of describing it. Granted, maybe I haven't watched too much stuff like this. Maybe there is other stuff like this. But at least for me, it felt really refreshing to watch it.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? A film called Sorry to Bother You. I feel like it kind of, I think probably like kind of like that. No, I never saw. I heard good things about that movie, but I never ended up. I
watched it 2 years ago, and I remember like a friend told me like basically the whole movie at work, and I was like, I feel like you're telling me the whole movie, and I didn't. I remember seeing trailers for it, and I didn't get it. But then after I watched it, I'm like, I wish I fucking watched this so much earlier because it's filled with so much like just good, like it's funny, but it's also like talks about like so much like real life shit, like in a power structure way. And I just really love. He does a great job of like capturing that. But yeah, I'm very surprised he let Amazon let him fucking make this because he's clearly like anti-corporate in this movie and talking about like, yeah, we should do a general strike and like just crash all the industries. That'd be great, especially against these big companies. They're just like,
I feel like
don't care.
I feel like they don't care because they see it as a fictionalization.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, which then helps
until it's actually a threat.
Helps
then
change
stop
it from what reality is, because the more media like that exists in a way that isn't presented documentarily,
it's not dangerous.
Then it seems like it's not real. So therefore, you see something in real life that's similar to the fiction. Well, that's fiction. So like, it's not.
Well, here's
like
a good
that.
example of it from a different perspective. Like, think about how many things changed after 9/11 in terms of like movies about war or movies about terrorism. How those things changed. I think the only way we'll ever not see like anti-corporate stuff sells, and the reason it sells is because people are pissed at corporations, but they can watch it and then feel better and keep going back to work the next day, generally speaking, and they're not afraid of it yet. If all of a sudden we did start doing something and we point to be like, yeah, I was really influenced by this thing, or I learned it from this thing, this movie that was on your platform, that's when they'll start taking that shit down or not producing it at all. But you saw that, like I said, with 9/11, where they're like, everything's got to be pro-America now. You can't get away with like even a loose plot of like America actually might be the bad guys in the Middle East,
Yeah.
So I think that's a good example.
Interesting. I guess I can go next. I watched the first Mission Impossible movie again for the second time in my life. I want to watch the rest of them before seeing Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm surprised they kept
out this week already too.
I'm surprised they've kept the name Part 1 in there, because so many movies they get rid of that because they're afraid of people being like, that's a commitment. I don't want to deal with that.
Tom Cruise seems committed enough out of his own wallet to he'll force it, whether or not let's say it doesn't do well in the box office, he'll find a way to get it done.
Yep. Well, that's what happened with Top Gun Maverick. Like, he said, no, we're waiting until we can have this in theaters. You're not putting it on streaming. No, it's not happening. And guess what? The movie made a shit ton of money and was awesome. But I watched it. That's just a classic film. Like, I legitimately believe that's like, you could talk about like older Bond films and you have these eras of action, thriller, spy stuff, but like that is classic 90s spy stuff in non-cheesy ways. Just fantastic. See, I'm going to go through and I'm going to rewatch all of those. I remember you got to watch
like
those.
we've been talking about like binging them one day. It's been more of like when, I think we got
I wanted to do a thing with you for it too, but it doesn't work out that way.
But I was going to say is I wonder if I can see Dead Reckoning without seeing any of them. I wonder.
Please don't. For me, please don't. My ranking. Actually, I'm going to rewatch all these before I give a ranking for them again. But the third one, we all like to hate J.J. Abrams, but he directed the third one, and it's the best one.
Which one has the Metallica song in it? Is that the second one?
I don't remember.
I Disappear.
Really bad.
I heard it was in the bad one.
Then that would be the second
song,
one.
but the Metallica song ain't bad. That's all I remember.
Tandy Newton's in the second one. Yeah, okay. I watched that. That's fantastic. I don't know if last time we did one of these was after I played these two, but I played through and platinumed Bloodborne and then Dark Souls Remastered, and then I started Bloodborne, or not Bloodborne 2. I wish. Dark Souls 2,
One day,
Scholar
maybe.
of the First Sin Edition on PS4, which is a different game somewhat from Dark Souls 2. Like, enemy placement is different, and there's some stuff changed in it. Enough that it's like a different game. Kind of like how you could be like, oh, Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal are two different games because there's enough different between them. Dude, you don't need me out there to tell you that Bloodborne is an amazing game. It really is. I'm so glad I finished that. That's a top 20 game for me. It is fantastic. It is easier than any of the other ones. I didn't beat Elden Ring, baby. Like, I assume that game could probably be easier just through the ways in which you can improve your character. Might seem easier. Bloodborne to me is almost a 10 out of 10, but it suffers from something that I struggle with on how I want to define. Let's say you have I'm going to do a video soon on my own thing on perfect games and how I think calling a game perfect is not applicable to its score. It's an attribute you have alongside of it. A 5 out of 10 can be perfect. This game, let's say this game you have a game that's a 10 out of 10, right? But then let's say it's a sequel because somehow you know the structure of what this game is going to be, and then this game comes out and it does that. It's a 10 out of 10. It's awesome. And they add something new onto it, and it's not all that good. Does the game as a whole suffer because of this addition, or because you could easily ignore it? Do you ignore it and keep it as a 10 out of 10? Bloodborne has these randomized dungeons called the Chalice dungeons, and they suck. You don't need to play them for the story. You don't need to play any of them at all for the story. Although the game kind of makes you think that you have to, but you don't. When you get the ability to enter the Chalice dungeons, this other random door is unlocked, and I don't think they really tell you that. So you think, oh, I have to do the Chalice dungeon because I got the Chalice from beating a boss.
I'm gonna have to go back because I dropped off around a part where I got caught in this dungeon where there was a bunch of these like hags just constantly killing me, and they're like really tough to kill, and it just felt like a maze of cages and walls and different like caged in areas, and I'm like, do I have to go through this? Like I don't know. But then if it
was at one of those graves that you portal in and it's a Chalice dungeon on like the left hand side,
maybe not.
You don't need to do any of those. But so there are randomized ones based off a seed, and then there are non-randomized ones that the games developers from software has built. And unfortunately, for the Platinum and a secret boss, which is story related and is just awesome, you do have to go through all of those, and that sucks because they're built out of the same parts as the randomized ones, and there isn't that many parts. If you want to have a giant open space, there's 3 options. It's a lot of like Mario Maker stuff where like I recognize this part. All right, I can just tell the layout of this because I just know I see these 3 rooms together. Okay, I'm piecing things together. The randomized stuff also screws up game balance because it didn't take long for people to find, I think they called it the cum dungeon because the randomized seed code had CUMMM in it. I think it's something vulgar like that, where you enter this dungeon and you're at the lamp and you walk forward a little bit, and you don't need to look left at this wall, but if you do, you would see that, oh, a giant health bar is just going down in some other room beyond there. When it goes away, you get like 90,000 souls. And then you go back to the lamp, you go back to the hub, the dream, the hunter's dream, and then you go back to the dungeon, walk forward, the health bar goes away, you get 90,000 souls. So you can level up through the way the game works. They just, by nature of just having large randomized seeds for how they generate dungeons, the ability for a very powerful enemy to spawn on spikes or whatever so that it just takes damage instantly dies. And since souls instantly warp to you, the player, no matter how an enemy dies, it can die by its own meaning. It can die by another player. If you're doing the co-op, it always goes to you. You know what I mean? You just get it instantly. So like, yeah, I did that. Fuck it. It gets part of the game. And because I was struggling a little bit and I was like, I just want to breeze through this, and like the flow of the mechanics were really hitting me. I went through the DLC on that game as well. Fantastic. I will say like the From Software aspect people have of like the lore bits and the hints here and there, and you're picking up on things like, I understood that a lot more in Dark Souls Remastered than I did Bloodborne, but when an aspect clicked on me, I was like, holy shit. And I could spoil this. The game's been out for almost a decade now. So if you're willing to let me spoil something that isn't really all that big of a deal, but is still cool nonetheless.
I probably won't play it again. I really like the game and I appreciate
they might do a remake or remaster of it.
And I'm thinking I'm just going to wait till something like that. So,
but yeah, I mean,
that could
like,
be a fun thing to do.
You're in Yharnam. It's called Yharnam. You eventually go to Old Yharnam. That's an old city. They had to burn that place. Oh man, that sucks. And eventually, through maybe one of the things you find out, they're what the rulership was like, and this and that. And you're fighting all these monsters, and Vicar Amelia is this giant wolf thing. What's a Vicar? And you learn some of this stuff. And the last combat area in the game before the final boss, which I don't need to spoil what the final boss is because this is irrelevant. I'm going. It's like this nightmare hellscape, and like there's these creatures that if they have line of sight on you, your health starts depleting, and your madness meter goes up. And when that fills up, you take a fuck ton of damage. And even me, with my over-leveled ass and maxed out health bar, would almost instantly die to these things. So it still felt like a challenge. It was just a knowledge gap and a skill thing rather than like I was getting my ass beat no matter what, which I think is good because like, you know, I can overlevel myself in, you know, Pokemon and just steamroll, but overleveling myself here isn't going to carry me as much as you'd think, which is why like my own skills definitely carry me a good amount through that game. But, you know, I'm climbing through this tower and I'm going in and I'm out and up this mountain in this tower and this and that. And I get to like the last checkpoint for this area. And I'm hearing this baby crying. I'm like, oh, that sucks. There's something fucked up's going to happen. I'm going through and it's up and it's wailing. And I'm like, this is weird. And you have this insight meter, which I know goes up and it adds more things. And I heard something about a baby wailing because of that. I'm like, maybe it's part of that. And I get up to the giant gate to like a castle on top of this mountain tower thing. And there is this woman in a white dress standing and staring up at the top chapel area. And I walk up and she's not even phasing. I don't attack because you can hurt NPCs and kill them. So like I don't even joke about doing that at all. I see this woman, I'm like, that's weird. She's not reacting to me. She looks like she would kill me because she's kind of skeleton-y, you know, deathly or whatever. And I'm hearing the baby wailing there and it's louder. And oh, her white dress on her stomach is red and bleeding. And I'm like, holy shit, that's her baby. I'm like, oh that's... But they don't tell you that. I'm like, fuck, that's fucked up. And I go in. And the boss you fight there... So I walk up. And it's in this arena, because they're always in arenas, these boss fights. And you see a baby carriage there with the source of the baby wailing. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to fight the baby. No. This giant monster descends on the carriage. I don't know what happens to it. I think it consumes or whatever. And the boss's name is called Margot's Wet Nurse. And I'm fighting this horrifying thing. And I'm like, oh man, that's fucked up. That's insane. Whatever. Crazy. I'm like, man, I'm starting to piece things together. Okay, this is cool because I've heard Margot. Also, the boss theme for Margot is the same music that plays for this music box that you get from in the first area of the game that this girl wants you to find her father. And if you play that during like the first boss fight against Father Gascoigne, it stuns him. He's the father of the baby. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I found out that about the music thing by reading online. But still, I'm piecing it together and that's so cool. I go through all these optional chalice dungeons and they suck ass. And I'm really upset about it. And then you find the secret boss there, and it's that woman in white, and her name is Queen Yarnum. And I'm like, holy fuck, it's just adding all this stuff in that I would not know at all. And it's cool, and I kicked her ass because I was just so upset but that I had to go through all that stuff. But
Yarnum's a good word. It's a good
awesome name
word.
for a town. Yeah. From Software rarely misses with naming their places. Lordran, Dark Souls 1, Draglek for Dark Souls 2, Lothric for Dark Souls 3. The Lands Between, I think, was Elden Ring, and that kind of sucks because I want a cool name. Bloodborne's amazing. I highly recommend it. Platinumed it. I prize that on my shelf. Dark Souls has a better story, though. Dark Souls does something, and a lot of people have talked about this before. I literally bought a book because of my love of the story of Dark Souls. It's called You Died. And it's a bunch of testimonials about people that have played Dark Souls throughout the industry.
Oh, that's interesting.
I recommend it. They're coming out with a Bloodborne one soon too. I think it's called Blood Echoes. I have to look and see if it's the same type because that book's cool. Dark Souls does something very cool because it subverts. It's a game in which if you're just I'm going to play this video game and have some fun. You're not really thinking all that much about it. You're going to have a fun time if you can beat it. And you're going to go through and you feel like, yes, I'm a hero. I've saved, the world. The Age of Fire was going to end.
Saved the city.
I've linked the last bonfire, and now the Age of Fire is prolonged. Little weird that I'm on fire and that's how it ends, but cool. It was a sacrifice, I guess. I've saved the world. Awesome. Maybe think about it a little bit more, and you're like, that's interesting. So like, I'm a dead guy. This whole world's full of dead guys, and I get out of this prison area by luck, by literal luck. This bird just picked me up because I was lucky enough to kill this weak boss and I end up in this new area. Okay, because that's where the bird took me. And then this guy says, oh yeah, there's like there's a guy in the prison that says like, oh yeah, if you ring the 2 bells, like it's like a prophecy thing. And then I see this other guy there, and he's like, you're like, if you're thinking about it, you're like, this other guy's like, oh, apparently the chosen undead, rings the 2 bells and something or whatever. And you're like, okay. So, you go and you ring these 2 bells, and then in that same opening area, Firelink Shrine, this area opens up, and this weird primordial serpent, creepy dude named, starts with like Frampt or something. I forget his name. Pops up, and he's a weird guy, and he waxes poetically about how you are the chosen undead. You've rung the bells of awakening, which not only woken the giants, which lets you through to the next area, Sen's Fortress, but also woke him up, which is key.
He's woke now.
Yeah, he's woke. And he's like, you are the chosen undead. You are going to replace, you're going to succeed. That's the term they use. Maybe not him, but someone else uses it. You're going to succeed Lord Gwyn, Ember Cinder Lord Gwyn, which the opening of the game kind of tells you that he ushered in, with the help of some friends, this age of fire, and he's like the Lord. He's awesome, and Lord Dran is like his kingdom area. Cool. I'm gonna succeed him. Cool. I'm gonna be king. Awesome. I gotta save the world by the fire's gonna fade. We gotta save the age of fire. Cool. So like, okay, you got to go through Sen's Fortress. It's a house of traps. A lot of people die in it, but you're gonna go through it, and then you're gonna go to I forget the name of the big city. It starts with an A. It's a beautiful city.
Got that far.
You did not get that far because you didn't ring both bells when you streamed the game for charity, which is cool that you did that. Oh my God, it doesn't matter. It's an awesome. It's a beautiful place. Legit beautiful architecture, amazing. Yes, you go through there and you find Gwendolyn, Lord Gwyn's daughter, and you're fighting. It's the hardest boss fight in the whole game is before because it's 2 people at once, and they have different movesets and they suck. And you see her. She is gigantic. She is voluptuous and extremely beautiful. They frame her. She is laying down. I think she has her head on her hand or something, or maybe it's something like this. I don't know. Breasts hanging out, but they're covered, but like it's thin strips over the nipples. Beautiful, beautiful creature, person. And I say creature because she is not human like you. She's like Lord Gwyn and his friends were like semi-demigods because they found the first flame. But she's framed, laying like that. She is physically large and imposing, but beautiful, and you would worship her. You kneel down and when you go to speak with her, but like light is coming in through behind her, making it almost kind of hard to see her face, but you hear her angelic voice and blah blah blah. She talks more about how you're going to succeed Lord Gwyn, and you're like, I will do anything for you, honey. Wow, that's kind of like and she gives you the thing you need to progress in the game, which is this giant bowl. They don't show you carry the bowl until you go to place it, and it's comically large, which is funny because it's
magic.
Like humongous. Yeah,
it's magic.
And you need to kill all of Lord Gwyn's old friends because they're preventing the age from continuing, and we need to do this. It's best for everyone because we don't want an age of darkness to come upon us. So, like, let's say you go and you do all that, you call them, and then you fight Lord Gwyn because you find out, sacrificed himself, but he burned his soul to keep the flames burning a little bit longer. And then you beat him, but he's like a husk of a man. And then you do the same. You burn yourself. There are 2 endings of the game. You either do that, you light the last bonfire, or you just walk out and you get a different ending. I assume they would let you do that even if you didn't know, but there's a second path to the game. And I did this second path. I didn't do the main first path. First off, if you decide to be cheeky and shoot an arrow at Gwendolyn, she vanishes because she's not real. And the entire arrow, and Orlando, that's the name of it. The beautiful golden sunset light vanishes, and you find the textures of the place are a little bit different. It's cracked, it's ugly, it's gross, it's been decayed forever. And this voice of the last remaining heir of Lord Gwyn, this guy named Guinevere is her name. Gwendolyn is this guy's name, and he's a boss fight that you can fight. And he basically says you're fucked now because you did this. If you pick up on some aspects, you kind of learn that like the way people talk about like, oh, many people came to Sen's Fortress before you and they all died. If you decide to go and I don't know if you've attacked Framp the serpent a bunch, he says this or not, but certainly if you take the other path, he says this. He says, oh, you must not be the chosen undead. I will wait for the real one. And he goes back down his hole. But it's like, well, wait a second. I thought the prophecy said if I ring the bells that I have to be it. Okay. So if you take this other path and you go this other route instead, if you instead of taking the giant bull to him and you go defeat this one boss, you meet another primordial serpent. He's like, hey guys, I need to tell you something. This is not, you've been lied to. Like they've been just preventing progress from continuing, and like the Age of Man won't happen because like they've kept you all penned up in this giant city because they're afraid of you humans. And they're really powerful and they want to keep their power, and they want you to kill yourself to keep the fire burning. So like you should kill them and not do it and usher in an age of darkness. That's how they phrase it. All the people that want you to preserve the age of fire call the upcoming age the age of darkness, but everyone else calls it the Age of Man, which is very interesting because that's what you are. And fire is who they were, and the dragons were who came before them. You know, it's those that are in power want to keep their power type of thing. So, like, with you have that aspect and framing, it really does tell you that the whole, like, I played Zelda games before. I played games where you're the hero, where it's just presumed that you're the hero because the game tells you the hero, and there's a prophecy, and the game tells you that you're the hero because of the prophecy, and you go with it, and it's right, and you win, and that's awesome. And this game does that, and if you don't think about it critically, it's not wrong, because that's how you take away from it, but you think a little bit critically, and you kind of realize that, like, you've been tricked, but it's only if you take the time to think about it that it becomes true.
If you have all the information.
Yeah. I've rambled long enough about a game that's a decade plus old and other people have done it better. But I'm late to the party on really experiencing what that is, honestly, for myself. And I think that, honest to God, that becomes a top 10 video game because of how it... People like to talk about like Metal Gear Solid 2 and things of like really subversing video games and the language and stuff and how we interact with them. But Dark Souls does that by taking the assumption on how you play video games, having you enter that, and if you're willing to think a little bit, you break it yourself. Instead of the game just telling you outright, with no way in order for it not to happen, that, you've been lied to. I think it's brilliant. So, Dark Souls. That's enough about me ranting about a video game.
Yeah, come on.
What else have you done? Tell me your deeds.
I mentioned it in an episode we recorded before this that will go out after this. But play a little bit of Stray, only a couple more hours, and that game is cute. It's a fun game. I'm actually really digging it. I'm sad that we didn't just... Because we played it one night and then for whatever reason just never went back to it. Not because we didn't like it, but just, I don't know. There's something else that came up or we wanted to watch this or do this instead. But yeah, I'm playing it now and I'm like, this game is good. And I get why it was up for some awards, the Game Awards. I think it's not like earth-shattering or like, you know, I mean, it's not like, I mean, Game of the Year is always, you know, maybe there's something new in it that hasn't been done before, and but overall it's just a fun, casual game. I just really like it, and it's easy to just...
I heard it's very good.
It has puzzles in it that are fun. Nothing like that it hasn't been done before, but just they're fun, and yeah, and I like the adventure. I like the adventure of doing it. And I know it's short, so that's why we're trying to finish it and hoping to get into maybe a new game like Dead Space or something. Because I need to play at least one new game, I guess, this year.
I've had Stray because it was on PlayStation Plus, and it ends, I think, this month. So I should probably play it too before, like...
I think the game's like 8 or 9 hours or something like that. It's pretty short. But it's cool. Yeah, it's a cute, fun game. With some cool, just environmental. Like I think it's very pretty too. Very like well lit game.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. For sure.
Oh yeah, I took some screenshots. Like
you can find them at Persona Fun on Twitter.
Yeah, I took some screenshots because I was like, this game is pretty. Wish there was a photo mode.
There's no photo mode?
I don't know, not that I'm aware of. I was just taking them as I was going, which I think is good too. That if you're able to take screenshots as you're going that are already inherently beautiful, I think it's good like construction of like the scene.
Sure.
But I'll jump to just, I guess, another movie. I saw the Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, how was
the
that?
fifth one.
How
I know it's got
that?
bad reviews.
Really?
I didn't like. Yeah, I didn't. Not people aren't liking it. It still has the Indiana Jones spirit, and we were talking about AI earlier, and I was worried from watching the trailers that like there was going to be a lot of like flashbacks.
The
Of
de-aging
Indy when
check.
he was. Yeah, and it's only this is I don't know if like I don't really know if this is a spoiler, but it's only in the first like 15 minutes. It's like the first setup. So like it didn't bother me. It was decent looking, and it didn't bother me because that was really it. I thought it was gonna be like a movie where it's constantly going back to like, oh, this one action indie is affecting you now. Like, nope, they just get it out of the way in the first 15 minutes. But yeah, it still has an Indiana Jones, I think, magic to it of like, there's set pieces that they clearly wanted to put Indy in, and they did it. And it's kind of lame. There's some parts I didn't like with like in terms of like, hey, this character that was from other movies, yeah, they're dead now, or just like,
I heard that spoiler of like, yeah, so and so's.
So that was kind of shitty.
They died off screen.
I think that was kind of shitty, but Harrison Ford's still great. I don't think it's the best Indiana Jones movie. It might be the weakest, but it still was fun to watch on the big screen, have some popcorn too. And honestly, we need more movies to, tell us that Nazis are bad still, and we should punch them.
It's okay to punch them. It's okay to whip them. It's okay to take pleasure out of doing those things too.
Yeah. And Mads Mikkelsen's in it, and he's a cool classic kind of villain. I don't know. I did like the cast too, and the set pieces were cool. I just feel bad for Harrison, but dude, he's old.
He's happy but with this movie though, unlike Star Wars, I feel like. Right? I don't need to give a shit about Star Wars.
But I'm okay if Indiana Jones ends here. I'll say that. I don't know if I need another one. I feel like there's movies like Uncharted that can hold the mantle, or Tomb Raider perhaps. No, but I mean, it has the magic for sure. It's just not at the same capacity, I think, just because Harrison Ford's older. He can't do the same stunts anymore. But it's... And they have to up the ante a little bit from the fourth one where there's fucking aliens in it. But
yeah, the first one had a box you open and you melt because God's real. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah. To me, I'm actually like a fourth movie apologist. I think that movie is fun.
I'm a George Lucas apologist. Yeah, that movie was fun. The monkeys, a little silly, but guess what? It's Indiana Jones.
It's Indiana Jones, yeah. So if
you're okay with
I
never saw the third one. So
if you're okay with the fourth one, then this is no different than that. I think it's a little bit silly like that. Third one is pretty good. That's a good one with
his father.
What's his name?
Sean Connery.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, Indy.
Yeah,
that's what
first one is still a great movie, and I like. It's a perfect scene writing example of like not to take yourself too seriously. That bizarre scene where the duel is good. He's swinging the sword around and he just pulls out a gun and shoots him.
Classic.
Like,
fucking scene.
It's classic, and it's also like it's one of those things where like it should be taught in every screenwriting class of like, why is this good? You know what I mean? Like, think about it here. The man is a reactive force. He does things because other things are happening, and he's not thinking in the way the story is thinking. He's thinking as him. It's great.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there's cool stuff in it, and there was a direction I was not really expecting it to go, and but at the same time I believed it enough because after Aliens, I mean.
I think I know what you're talking about because I've heard people talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah,
I still need to see the movie. So
yeah, when it comes out, whenever, or if you see it in theaters, it's a good popcorn movie to not take itself too seriously. But like I said, I'm a fourth Indiana Jones movie apologist. So if you don't like the fourth one, you will not like this one.
Interesting.
I'll be honest with you. So
okay.
And the last thing is, I know we've all played it, and we're taking a break, and
we'll
come back. Rust. We jumped back into that for 2 months to get some nostalgia drip into our veins after we played it a lot in 2013.
Yeah.
But we haven't returned since. I think the last time I played it was 2016.
Yeah. Rust is a perfect example of something that already existed that the tech industry wants to reinvent, and that's called a metaverse. Now, I know people like to talk about World of Warcraft and other MMOs as metaverses, things that have already existed that are doing the things, but I feel like Rust is on another level to what they mean when they say it is a world that you enter, that you exist in there, and I don't mean like this, but like you're represented in this world. And there is actual sociological elements to it and economic elements to it that is on an individual to individual basis. You know what I mean? Yep. Devin can shoot me and take my stuff. I can make a trade with him. We can decide what we want based off things. You know what I mean?
We can make an alliance. We could build a base together.
Anything. You know what I mean? I can do things for Devin. I almost pointed in the opposite direction. I can do things for Devin, and Devin can do things for me. And it doesn't have to be through weird menus. It can just be through the mechanics on how the game works. And then, like the sociology elements of it, of like, there's people that live in this grid space over there, and they have a giant-ass base, and all right, hey, I know neighbors, like, it'd be real nice if I raided you and took your stuff, and I know you're thinking the same thing about me, but, like, why don't we make an agreement here? If those guys come for us, they're coming for all of us, so, like, we want to team up and go after them. There's that type of element to it all. It's a survival crafting game on a procedurally generated island, first person, with guns and
every month
escalation.
It wipes and the map's new and all that.
Yeah, and like the wiping sucks, but like it's necessary for the game to exist the way it is. But that just means I ain't playing it every month. Like, I thought about honestly hopping in for July here because we played it throughout the month of June. I thought about it, I'm like, I need a break because guess what? I bought the Season 2 pass for Overwatch and I played it a little bit and never went back. I used to do that shit with Fortnite back in 2018. Whenever it came out on Switch and I played on there for the first few seasons there, that it was on Switch, like 3, 4, and 5 or something like that. Like and Apex Legends, we played that. I'd get really into a game for a season, you know what I mean? I'd max out that battle pass. I'd buy the next one, barely play it. And I gotta learn now I know I would have fun for a week with Rust in July, but I'll have more fun if I just don't, and then I just bottle that up inside, and when, you, me, and David, our friend, want to go back in again for, let's say, September or something like that, October, whenever, like, we're going to have the same amount of fun that we had in June. And because we're not on different, I played a little bit too much. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to have that.
It was cool to revisit and see the new stuff that, like, clearly was added after we stopped playing or has been changed slightly. There was some stuff that's been there from the original. I always liked the procedurally generated maps. With these, I've always dreamed of a game, and I think I told David this when we were playing the game when it was just us two, when I was like, I would love, one day we'll probably have the capabilities for it, a game that is like Rust, generally. But I want it on the scale of, like, in-game, the scale of, like, the United States, where it's everyone on one. Okay, I don't remember. And, yeah, it was just like, I want a game that's as big as the United States, in-game. Like, a mile is a fucking mile. It will take you, in real life, it takes me however many minutes to walk a mile. It will take that long for you to walk a mile in the game. I would like that. But I would like it to be where, like, there's got to be rewards for cooperation. I guess maybe in a Death Stranding kind of way.
We have a Sonic Strand game idea. It's a video that we've done on here. Go check it out.
I don't know. It just makes me... The game inspires me in that kind of not in a creative way, but I guess in a, like, what could this look like in 100 years from now? Like, this type of game. on a much broader scale. And you're talking about like the, how will people interact with one another? Like, hey, we know that on the West Coast, there is a fucking huge ass base of like 300 people, and we know that they're coming here. So as a community, we need to like build up our defenses or something.
That would be awesome. I think
like
they
I don't
could
know how that would work, but just like
I think the only limiting like first off, like Rust has these monuments they call them, but it's like spaces like a harbor or a gas station.
Right.
They would need like to make honest to God 100 different monuments in order for the spacing on them to be apart from duplicates to be big enough for it to work out. But I feel like the actual limiting factor is just the server space. Like the server has to maintain America, and that's just I assume that that's not possible. But that's the only thing. Like,
right.
Like,
it'd be cool that like everyone plays on one server, and because like one thing I guess negative part of the game is that I think there's ratings happens too often. I feel like it's this fear that we always need to go on every day and commit to it. And as working adults and who have also other responsibilities, hobbies, and the like, it's hard to be like, I gotta go on. Not even it starts becoming a chore, and that's my biggest issue with the game is I didn't want it to become a chore. And there was moments where it felt like, well, if we don't, then all the stuff when I was having fun won't be available, and that kind of sucks. So I feel like if someone could find a way to make Rust, but like on a larger scale, where like we can go deep in like the middle of nowhere in the woods and probably not see anyone in the game for maybe months and months and months, and there's no wipe, that there's always space available to go play. I think that'd be cool. So for me, it's just like playing this, I'm like, man, I hope 100 years from now someone's like found a way to like expand on this
that would be
in a much
awesome.
Broader way, because I like the community of it, and generally speaking I just felt like, and I like the building of it. I like making like a fort. It's like the kid in me comes out and like I want to go build a fort in the woods with my friends and collect rocks. Like, yes,
we wanted to do that. In real
legitimately
life as children.
So like this game is the closest to that, so I appreciate it from that no other game can do for me, is that like it brings out the child in me to be like, I want to make art pieces for our base that are inside jokes or make fun of one of us, or
not me, I'm too sensitive.
Just I don't know, it just, I feel like the game is, I hope, a prototype for something in the future that I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
it's
like
a decade old, which is crazy.
Yeah.
When I played it in early access.
There's some negatives to the game, but like overall, like I said, I think the biggest thing
cool
is it brings out the child in me.
The way the game works, I mean, like, the Rust mobile app allows you to hook up security cameras and hook up triggers and things and activate them from your phone. And like, when we're running back to base, when we're driving our boat back to base, if we went, we instead of running across the island where we would get shot and die, we took a boat because we had a boathouse, and we sail way so far away from land so that no one could see us from the shore, because we wouldn't be loaded in on their end. We wouldn't, be spawned in for them. And we go around the map up to one area we know that like basically no one lives there, and there is a bunch of rocks for us to mine. And like one of us has a jackhammer. Two of us just have, guns, and they're just keeping an eye out. And one person's trying to get as much as they can. Okay, pass the jackhammer wrong. Inventories are all full. We go all the way back. We're filling it up. That's like such an awesome high. And like the ability to be like, I'm going to turn on our furnaces from my phone in real life before we get there to save electricity, so it's not on the whole time while we left. And then the ability to be like, I'm going to put on a smart alarm onto this heartbeat sensor or this pressure plate or this laser beam, so that if someone got into our base, I would be alerted on my phone, and I would know that I got to quick get on. And guess what? When we got our ass raided like 4 or 5 days before the month ended, I woke up at like 9 a.m. to find out that 15 minutes ago they started raiding, and our turrets were going off, and like, that was a sad moment, but it was also kind of relieving because it was a lot of effort to maintain that. But I have no regrets on how that works. It's also the type of game where like, the raiding and the PvP elements where it's like, there is no perfect base design. Someone that has more resources than you will just eventually get in. But like, if it's really daunting, less people will even try. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
the people that rated us, because our base, I designed our base, and I'm very happy with our base. Yes, it could have been bigger. We would just be on more often. We could have defended this, and then our upkeep would have been higher, that type of thing. Our enemy lived on a glacier fortress. The person that ran it had 3 kids that were, the account was on 24/7. And they had friends.
He has child labor to come.
They had unlimited resources. We were, no matter how well we defended, they were eventually going to get in. And I'm just glad that our defenses at least got to get some action, because
for a 3 squad who, you know, like
got on, we tried to get on almost every night. And granted, I had more time during the day because I could keep it idle at the very least while I did other things on my computer and then go back. You know what I mean? Like, we did our best, and I have no regrets.
Considering the circumstances, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of those things that, like, I'm glad, because it started off as just, like, what do we want to play tonight? Because we were taking a break from something else, and we're like, hey, let's just want to fuck around in Rust. It's been 7 years or whatever.
We started by working on our CSGO map. Remember that? And they were like, we were just talking about Rust and how awesome Rust was, and I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was David, you or me. Someone was like, why don't we just play Rust? And then everyone was like,
I was looking at the Steam library, and I was like, hey, I have Rust installed. Do you want to play it? Or like, I think you had it installed, and I was like, let's just do it. Like, we play a night, and then
I think sucks, you and I had to like reinstall it or something because it wasn't running or something, wasn't launching. But like, and then oh man, honest to God, like, it's hard to really quantify that game besides the personal connections you make with it. Because if I was playing that solo, by my own, that game would not be a top 10 video game for me. It's weird because, like, one of these days I want to revisit my, 5 years out of date spreadsheet of every video game I played enough to rank it. Rust isn't on that list. I don't know why, but, like, I think it might be a top 10 for me of my favorite games.
In terms of,
how much it meant to me.
I don't know if I can rank stuff, but like in terms of time spent, it's definitely in top 10 games of time spent on, like, I think I have 500 something hours, 70 hours. I mean, nothing will beat Counter-Strike.
I have like 1,200.
I think I'm like 3 hours away from 1,500 hours on CSGO. So I was looking the other day.
Nice.
Besides that, like, maybe a Madden 09 or something on the PS2 that I played a shit ton is the only other game I can think of that may have more hours than Rust. I played Madden 09 on the Wii. They might have more hours than Rust, but yeah, no, it's one of those games I think maybe at least once a year, maybe we just try to dive in, at least for like a week, just to mess around and see if it's changed.
Love it.
So
love it. All right, I have one last thing. I don't know if you have any. Do you have anything else? Because I'll close it out with this one last thing. This is a big one.
Yeah, I'm good.
I have been playing, as I talked about earlier, Final Fantasy 16. Ooh, ah. Fate is written in fire. Ooh, ah. I went and I bought probably the most disappointing collector's edition I ever had. Because the game is $70. Collector's edition, or deluxe edition, I should say, is $100. Comes in this box here. It came with a steel book. That's pretty nice. I like collecting them. I also pre-ordered it on Best Buy, so I got another steel book too that was exclusive to them. I find it funny how the spines write out Final Fantasy 16 differently, and I find that kind of funny. One has way more effort.
It's like almost like a branding issue.
One of them down here, the one that comes with the actual deluxe edition, is definitely in the format. The other one comes in just regular ass PlayStation spine text. And then the thing also came with this kind of neat
all-world map. Yeah, God of War came with that too. My God of War thing. Is it cloth or is it?
It is. It's a cloth. It's kind of like a
That's what God of War's was too. And I have it underneath my Kratos statue because I didn't know where else to do
cool world map. That's it. That deluxe edition literally came with no extra content. Just came with a map and a steelbook. So I feel like that was a bit of a letdown. But I am happy that at least in true Square Enix fashion, the deluxe edition doesn't replace the actual game case. It comes with this and the steelbook. Kingdom Hearts 3 did that. Final Fantasy 7 Remake did that. 16 did it. I have not finished the game. I believe I'm a little bit over halfway. I will say this game is as surprising.
Is that? What did you say?
I've been doing every side quest that pops up as they pop up. So I've been playing the game slowly in that sense. I'm not rushing through the story. I'm playing through the content, as it pops up. I'm about 50 hours through the game. I'm as surprised with how good this game is as I was with Final Fantasy VII Remake in different ways. I was surprised when Remake came out because I'm used to, like, Final Fantasy 15 had good elements in it, but a lot of, like, anime, like, not great story elements to it. Kingdom Hearts 3, I love that game because that's the first game, my favorite game of all time. It and its sequel on PlayStation 2 are, like, perfect video games to me. Like, they're just incredible and they mean so much to me. And, like, there's a lot of things where I'm like, I'm 27, or no, this is 2019. I don't know how old I was then.
When
Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. When Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, I don't remember how old. I think it was like 24, maybe. I don't want to do the math. But I'm like, yeah, like, okay, like, the Disney stuff doesn't bother me, but the stilted dialogue and like, the way Tetsuya Nomura directs cutscenes, I'm like, this is not that interesting of a story. But, like, I love it because it's what I love. And then 7 Remake comes out and blows me away with its actually good story and good cutscene direction, and it takes itself seriously, and it's cool, and, like, this is awesome. Crazy. 16 surprised me in ways where it feels very mature, and, like, this is a game written by adults for adults. Like, Final Fantasy, from 7 onward, went for the teen market, where characters didn't have to be teenagers because kids look up to people just slightly older than them. So Cloud Strife is 21. Final Fantasy VIII, Squall Lionheart's like 23 or something like that. And then, like, okay, Titus is younger than that. He's probably a teenager in 10. And then, 13, you have Lightning, or Claire is her real name, and she's probably 20-something. And then, like, 15, he's a teenager. 16 here, the man's 32. Or 33. Yeah. And, like, granted, there's some time skips because there's a flashback when he's 15, and then you play a chunk of the game. This was in a pre-release interview, so I'm not spoiling this. But you play a section where he's 28, and then he's 33. And this feels like an adult. It feels like his problems are adult-like. And, like, it's weird to say that, but, like, I've grown away from some of the things kids might think are melodramatically, important to them that those stories catered to. And this one feels more like adults. And they're written and they're performed like adults. But besides that, this is a world that is believable, not because it's trying to be realistic. It has magic, but it's a world that feels believable because it has multiple problems in it. And it isn't just, we just do this one thing and they go away. It has problems in it that are outwardly right. Spoilers for the game. I'm just going to spoil this from now on. So just jump, I guess, some point in the future, maybe 20 minutes. I don't know. Maybe it'll don't be spoilers, maybe 10 minutes. I'm going to start spoiling it, so you're warned. The game has obvious wrong things in it, like in the world, that we would recognize, like slavery, like climate change, and the way, people fight over natural resources which destroy the planet. But then it also has things that might not be seen as wrong, like serfdoms. This world is full of duchies and kingdoms, and there's lords, and there's power that's inherited through that. And that's a problem. And some of these issues and those elements like that are brought up and challenged a little bit. But it's the state of the world as it's supposed to be. But then we also have the things that are really, like, yes, the world is supposed to have these slaves, and these giant crystals are good. But, like, we as an audience just know that, slavery is bad. And, like, these, the fighting over the crystals is bad in and of itself. But every nations are naturally at a state of war. It's the way they've always been. If your country is not at war, you have to ask yourself why. And then World War II is when, like, war stopped becoming, in real world, World War II is when war stopped becoming, like, this romanticized thing, where because the ways in which people die became so much more awful in ways that, like, no, we don't, you know what I mean? Like, it was not as honorable to, like, want to fight for your country. But, like, this is back then where I'm reading through all this stuff, and, like, there's wars all the time, and, like, the duty and this and that, and it's cool. But, like, The slavery element is interesting because this game has several themes. One of them is very anime, where like there are special people that are born with the ability to summon the summons from Final Fantasy games and past, but they become them instead. They're called icons. EIKON is how they pronounce it, not ICON. And like one of the game's opening things is that like Titan, the big one's fighting Shiva, and then there's an actual war going on, and those people are being trampled and killed. And like that's an actual theme of like extremely important people of history through the ways in which they go through, you know, their world in fiction and how they clash, destroy the regular people around them by happenstance of proximity. It's literally visualized with Titan stepping on the people on his own side to punch Shiva's ice crystals, which just destroy all the people on her side as the things fly past. It's visualized in that way, as it is also through the kingdoms themselves, as you has like an emperor that says, I don't care if our own citizens die, we will win this battle. Citizens can be bred, homes can be built, I don't care. Everyone can be replaced, type of thing. There's that stuff, which is a cool theme. But then, yeah, like there's a slavery element. Magic exists because there's these giant-ass crystals everywhere. And those crystals are mined, and they're literally the size of mountains. They're mountains. Like the crystals are mountains themselves. They're mined into handheld forms. You can hold, pretend this CCZ, Cherry Coke Zero is a crystal. It's in my hand. With this, I can create fresh water out of nowhere. I can stoke a fire, keep my blacksmith's forge running. I can put light somehow in this fixture, like a light bulb. I can freeze my fish that I've just caught so I can take them back to the market fresh. It might take me a day's walk. They will be fresh by the time they get there. These improve our lives. But they're expensive, so there's an economic aspect to them. Also, the localizers had a field day with slipping in the phrase, perhaps the truth was inconvenient, when one of our heroes talks about how they should, this is spoilers, destroy the giant crystals, because they're destroying the land around them by soaking, the magic is actually in the world, and they're soaking the magic out of the world and leaving unlivable husks behind in certain aspects. You can look at the world map as you go through, and aspects of it are black. Nothing can live there, nothing grows there, and it's because of these crystals. So these giant resources that improve our everyday lives, that are crucial to society, are destroying the world, which is a neat thing. So the quest is to destroy climate change in that aspect.
That's cool.
They literally talk about how it seems like it's irreversible. I've not beaten the game yet, but it's irreversible. But you have these slaves, and they're slaves because they don't need the crystals to channel the same magic stuff. But it's not like they're raining fireballs down on people. It's just as simple as the things the basic crystals can do. And because of that, they're seen as much of a tool as the crystals themselves. So if you're born, somehow they do a test, and if they're, you know, a bearer of this magic, as bearers is what they're called, you are branded with a giant tattoo on your face, and you're property, and you're sold off as slaves. And I don't want to defend the fact that there are no brown people or people of color in this game at all. They still could have done it. I'm not going to defend that. I could see how they might have made it worse for them if they did, and the story had a giant slavery aspect to it. They still should have. I get it. I went to the desert area, and there's tanned people, but they still talk in the cadence of all of the other fanciful Europeans. You know what I mean? They're not brown people. They're not people of the desert. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not those. They could have easily done the stereotypical, you know, Arabic stuff. They do kind of an architecture, but they're still very European people that are just tanned. You know what I mean? It's not the same. Because some people are probably going to be on Twitter being like, no, there are people of color. Look at Dalmatia. No, sorry, it's not. They're Europeans. They just live in a hot climate. So I can see that for the slavery aspect, but like our main character, Clive, he becomes one of these slaves because he can do the magic because he's connected to his brother, who is a dominant, who can summon and become an icon. So the magic got transferred to him as his brother, and he's meant to protect him or whatever. But he becomes enslaved by an enemy empire for like 15 years of his life, and he's a slave. And there are side quests you do in this game that I am surprised they had the balls to do that. I texted them to you. This is spoilers. In a particular area of the game, right before some story stuff happens where we may or may not have a time skip, they really want to hit home the slavery aspect. There's a side quest where you have this mark on your face, just like if you were a black slave in America, you know what I mean? They can tell that you're a slave by the way you look. It's not something you could hide. They have this mark on. The game also, by the way, does a lot of cool things where like it doesn't just tell you outright. It's written very well where like aspects of its world are spoken about when they need to be spoken about. Because it's like, there are people trying to liberate all these bearers, and some of them have their tattoos removed with a scalpel. And I'm like, oh, why don't everyone do it? Why don't they offer it to Clive right now? And someone kind of does, but it's not only until after this spoilers time skip in which they do it. And then I'm like, okay, why did he wait? That's weird. And then there's a side quest later where like this guy is being charged by, he's an apprentice physician, and he's charged with doing the surgery to remove the tattoo for the first time. He's really nervous, and you're kind of in somewhat of a leadership type of person. You're advising him. You're kind of helping this guy work through his issues. And it isn't just the fact that, okay, you could cut up the face and maybe, but sure, I can think even back in a medieval type of setting, the pressure and the stitching. No, there's a layer under the ink of the tattoo that's poisonous, and if that enters the bloodstream, you die. So there's that. Okay, but like they don't tell you that until you have to do this one side quest. Prior to this area, they really want to hit you home. So you have this brand on your face. You talk to people and they treat you like shit, unless they're on your side and they're sympathetic. This guy's like, my son is being attacked by this beast. Please go and save him. But he's kind of angry and he's demanding it of you because you are a bearer, you are a slave type of person. I don't know where your master is, but you need to go. And you're right up to this kid, and there's like this stray feral dog creature. It's a monster that you could fight. It's not a dog, but it's kind of there, and like then the dog starts to attack you, and it's just one weak enemy, so you kill it. And the kid's yelling at you. He's like, you weren't supposed to live. It was supposed to kill you. This isn't fun anymore. And blah, blah, blah. And then like the dad yells at you. Like they had basically done this trick several times now where they find some slave running by and then they have him killed for their amusement. And that's it. And guess what? You killed their pet, so they need to go and they find another one. And you hear them get their throats ripped out and mauled to death by one they tried to take. And our hero is not that sympathetic towards them, as he shouldn't be. That like, well, they're not going to be able to get more people killed. Like, that's one huge thing. There's another side quest there too, where this little girl asks you to help find her pet. I forget what the pet's name was, but she describes that she has beautiful white hair, and she loves to stroke her and pet her. And it's a slave she's talking about, and the slave is dead. That's why she hasn't been seen. It's this girl. There's an element too. That's one of the elements of why people are used as tools, is that magic actually turns you to stone if you use it too much. So she's not just dead; she was petrified, like because she used the magic too much.
Like Pompeii.
Kind of. And the girl comes up after you find her, and like she's not that upset because she can get another one. And our main character berates and yells at this child, and like correctly so. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy how like I did not think they were going to handle this in a way that felt respectable. That like I could respect the game for doing it. Yeah. Yeah, and then also, just the kingdom conflict politics is actually really well done. They clearly loved Game of Thrones. They said openly that it was inspiration. The Rosfields are the Starks. Our main character is, what if Jon Stark, instead of going to the wall, became a slave or an army and broke free, and his brother is Bran, who doesn't believe in himself until he has to. You know what I mean? Because their father dies early, and that was in a trailer. Father dies at the beginning, you know what I mean? And they have this destiny, and there's bad people who are blonde, you know what I mean? Blonde bad kingdom. So there's that elements, but it's actually written well. My issue with Final Fantasy 15 is that I don't buy its politics and its kingdoms and its world building. It seemed very weak. Written by people that probably don't know that stuff, and this was written by people that do. There is a gay couple in the game, and they're presented in the way people always want, where they're just there type of thing. But like you know that they're gay because they're two men that kiss. They're at least into men, at the very least, not just heterosexual. And, like, it's presented in a way in which, spoilers, one of them's a prince who doubts his father's orders. The other one is his attendant, his trusty knight, you know what I mean? And this prince is the icon of Bahamut, the giant dragon. So he knows his power and his respect and all that stuff. And they're alone, and they're talking about the state of the world and what's going on. And, the Empire, like, he's having to do bad things. But they're in a private space where these two lovers can actually... It would be the same as if it was a prince and a princess, or a princess and her knight type of thing that are secretly... There shouldn't be because of their stations, not because they're men. And, like, you know what I mean? And then when they kiss there, it feels just the same if it was a princess and a knight type of thing, I feel like. So the game is progressive in that, also in how it also presents other same-sex or non-straight relationships as just a thing that happens. The game also is pro-sex worker, in which there are, I wouldn't even say brothels, I would say districts in a city that you can go to do that. Not in a game as a mechanic, but, like, people openly talk about going to do that. And, like, they're not abused. So it's just pro-sex worker. My whole rant on this is I am shocked and surprised that this game is a believable world that is progressive in some elements, shows awful aspects that are real-world things in ways that aren't just I haven't beaten the game, but you can't hand-wave it away. I would say the closest thing to hand-waving away is, like, yeah, you do destroy these crystals one by one, at least so far in the game. And that's only possible because there's a core crystal that you can just destroy with a single sword slash. So it does kind of go down to one man could do it. I think it would be more interesting if it took... Because, like, it isn't just... It's not like a standard... like, it took a giant group effort where, like, a nation needs to come together in order to do this. You know what I mean? Group effort. But I get it's a fantasy action game. This is not an RPG. That might shock some people. This is an action game that has some RPG elements. At no point do I think that this is an RPG. It's just an action game, which is fine. It's also very easy. I will be playing through it on the harder difficulty on a stream for a trophy. But the game is very easy. Yeah, that's kind of my whole thing. I haven't beaten the game. Music's amazing. I said it with Final Fantasy VII Remake that Final Fantasy was back, but that was a known quantity. Of course, they can make something that they already know about and that's beloved, make that awesome and treat it with respect. I am shocked that they did it with their main thing itself. You know what I mean? So that's my whole big rant. I'm sorry it was super long.
Yeah,
and
come on.
Spoilers.
Him in Final Fantasy every time.
I know.
No, it's fine.
And it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, which that means it's good. Game's also just gorgeous.
See, full circle. Full circle.
Yeah. But it should also be on Xbox. It's probably not even going to come to PC in a year because they said we haven't even worked on a PC port. People assume that it's coming to PC in 1 year.
I mean, Final Fantasy
that's
VII
not the
took,
case.
like a year and a half, I think.
Yeah, to come to PC, and it's still not on Xbox because Sony just paid probably longer. I think once that entire trilogy is done, then we'll see them pop up on Xbox. But
that's like a big bundle or something,
or just because they can now. Long rant over. That's what we've been watching and playing. This was fun to do this every now and then. It's a good kind of check-in once like a quarter. It feels like we do this like maybe 4 times a year.
This is the end of our fiscal year, actually.
Yeah.
Starting July 1st was our new fiscal year. So
yeah. Hey, guess what? Next episode of the Sonic Movie Show, we're going to be reviewing the video game movie Dead Space Downfall. I think I know how we rated it because we recorded that before this. So check us out on YouTube when that episode airs in 1 week. We are actually, yeah. That's because
we've done
don't
that before.
shower.
We've also done that before, like on pure accident too. We've like during winter because I have like 5 sweaters that I go through in the winter.
I had like 2 hoodies I liked at the time, and I cycled back and forth. And then
so like when we record on
and
Thursdays,
they're both red. Yeah,
when I record on Thursday, I'm like, well,
we did a double feature today.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so we're on YouTube. Make sure you're watching there. Check us out there. Comment in the comments below. Do you think that Rust is a top 10 video game? Do you think that Indiana Jones 5 is a bottom 5 Indiana Jones film? Do you think that Final Fantasy 16 is overrated? Do you think Microsoft should have won? Do you think all of these things? If so, argue your case in the comments below with evidence, please. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell.
With links, Wikipedia links, preferred.
Yeah, absolutely. We already know that you agree that unionization is good, so you don't need to argue about that. Just show solidarity. Thank you very much. We're on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, Tumblr, and Instagram at Sonic Movie Show. No, it's not Tumblr. Did I say
Threads.
Tumblr? Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. There's 5. Maybe I always say YouTube. We're not on Tumblr. I don't want to say fuck that place, but that's a vibe I don't want to get into.
I don't know I don't even know how to work Tumblr. So
it would just be a blog, I guess, and you just link to the YouTube videos, I guess. We're on a bunch of podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Audible, which is an Amazon thing. Consolidation. So yeah, hit us up on those places at Sonic Movie Show. I'm on Twitter at Ethan Absolutely. I posted some screenshots of Final Fantasy 16. There's a couple of them where like the HDR in this game is really good. I posted one of just gorgeous colors of a river in a desert, and I was like, oh my god, Twitter probably doesn't do it justice because this was I was playing it in HDR on the TV, and I'm pretty sure the screenshots don't keep that color information, and it just gets posted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, it's probably something changed on it, but it still looks good.
I'm there at Ethan Absolutely. Thank you. And Devin's on Twitter at KersonAFun. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a fantastic day, and enjoy your stuff. See ya.
Consume.
Goodbye.